I declare the November 1st meeting in order of the Merrimack School District Budget Committee. Will we all please rise? I'd like to do something a little different. I would like for all of us to sing God Bless America. I would be happy to begin. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
I'm glad you didn't ask us to sing the Star Spangled Banner. There we go, we're warmed up.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome once again our excellent producer, director, video recorder from Merrimack Television, Justin Sles. And I would also like to note our longest-serving Budget Committee member, Carol Lang.
Thank you.
And we have new people. Unfortunately, we still have a couple short here this evening, but we have... Don't ever run for a bus. There'll always be another.
I never took a bus. I always had a boyfriend.
So I would like to begin, because we have some new membership here. If we could just circulate from one side of the room to the other, introducing ourselves. And I know some people think they have very little to tell about who they are or why they are here. But I think it would be interesting, something different. We've all given great consideration to what our school district does and what it would like to do. Maybe we could individually offer something that is of some concern to each of us. For instance, I like sports. You know, can we do more with sports, or are we doing enough with sports, or whatever the particular subject is? I'm sure we've all got something on our mind that requires budgetary notice. So, Ellen, why don't we begin with you this evening?
I'm Ellen. I'm always a hot mess at the last minute. Of course you put me on the spot, right, about the schools. So I've learned a lot in the last couple of years being on this committee about the schools. And I think through COVID, specifically, what I'm learning with my my vast age groups from elementary to high school across the system is that there's more social development support that needs to be paid attention to, because it affects their academic ability and it also affects their athletic ability. So that's one thing that I've learned can't just be taken for granted, and that a little more attention. I think the middle school is doing a phenomenal job of that, personally myself, because I'm still involved with the middle school. And elementary school is not quite as important, but I think it's lacking a little bit in the high school, because they're still trying to stick to that old school, old time structure. And I don't think that they've really learned how to bend and grow with the times, even though they've implemented the new times with no textbooks and electronics and things like that. So that's just my 2 cents there. And a few of the teachers and I have some discussions about that on a regular basis.
Well, thank
That's
you.
me.
Gina?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Gina Groff. I have been on this committee now. This will be my 2nd year going into this, and very excited to be here. I have 3 little humans who are currently in elementary school, and I have to agree with Ellen. I think social emotional learning is a particular area of focus I'd like to see us pay more attention to. And not even with COVID, although that certainly was a huge impact, but I think just in general, trying to navigate relationships between kids, relationships between kids and teachers, kids and parents. I'm finding that more and more, even though I knew there was no guidebook, there really is no guidebook on how to teach your little humans how to interact with people and be a good, kind person, especially with other external influences around. So that's something I'm particularly interested in. And I know this sounds silly, but I said this when I first interviewed to be on here because I was a write-in last year. I really believe that we need the optimal environment to teach our kids. And during the hot months, it is so hot. I mean, the AC in the schools, I would really like to see that happen because it's hard to learn when you're sweating your brains out. And it's very uncomfortable, and it's really not a great physical environment to be in. They need to be able to really learn and expand. They need to be comfortable, feel comfortable in their own skin, but they can't do that if they just can't be comfortable, period. So, happy to be here again.
Thank you. Mackenzie?
Good evening. My name is Mackenzie Murphy. I believe this is my 5th or 6th year on the budget committee. I can't keep track anymore. But I came on this committee because I went through the Merrimack school system, and I really want to be able to give back to the schools that provided me such a great education, where I'm now pursuing right now I'm pursuing a master's degree in education. So I really want to make sure that we provide a quality education to our students, especially in the student services realm. I myself went through that, and I know several students that have gone through that program, and I know how much being able to have that help and those accommodations available to students that go through that is a really big help. And so I just want to make sure that we properly fund, especially our Student Services Department, as well as all departments across the board, to make sure our students receive a good and quality education.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Dan?
My name's Dan Coakley. I've been in Merrimack since the late 70s, so I've been a taxpayer. I worked in educational publishing for over 40 some odd years, and traveled all over the country in school districts all over the country. And when I retired, I wanted to give back to the community and felt that education was one of those areas. So that's why I ran. And back when I ran, there was a real political divide within this town of what it is. And that's my biggest concern, of the political divide that we have at the national level that seeps down to the state level and seeps right here into our own town. And I don't know how I can bring those two sides together, but if I can, that would be my goal.
Thank you, Dan. Naomi?
I am Naomi Schoenfeld. I don't actually have a particular area of interest in terms of change or growth. I think that one of the areas that interests me in being on this committee, and the reason I do it, is I'm very interested in how schools and districts choose and determine and allocate their resources to best advantage, what's needed and what isn't, and what absolutely has to be there, and making sure we as a community provide that. So I like being part of the Voice doing that part.
Thank you, Naomi. Carol?
I'm Carol Lang. I've been on this committee. I've sort of lost track, but between the Municipal Budget Committee and this, somewhere in excess of 20 years. I've lived in Merrimack for about 40 years. I had one daughter that came up through the Merrimack school system. I think my biggest frustration is I don't even remember how many years it's been that we've been trying our best to build a new superintendent's office, and here we are, still not there. And anyone who has any familiarity with that building knows we are in dire need of this, and it really needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Other than that, I just generally, support public education and want to make sure that the children of Merrimack are getting the best possible education we can provide them, and also that we're providing them with a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Rachel?
Hello, my name is Rachel Papke. I have been in Merrimack now about 13 years and have been involved in various aspects of the school district since my kids have been in schools for probably the last 8 years or so. I joined this budget committee. This is my first year on here, and kind of like Naomi, I don't have one concern that I can point out. I do have many years of budgeting and forecasting budgeting experience, so I kind of approach that, kind of like Naomi said, looking at the needs of all of our stakeholders. So what are the needs of our district for our students, for our teachers, for our staff, for our maintenance, for our community? How are we building that budget from the ground up, and also how are we looking at it from a strategic point of view? Looking at the current year plus the out years as well. So kind of taking that holistic approach, while still trying to be able to deep dive it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the process more in depth and providing some, hopefully, insight into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Ken?
Hello. My name's Ken Martin. I am a 17-year educator currently at Winnicott High School. I'm the band director over there. I've taught from 3rd grade all the way up until high school. And my son right now is in 3rd grade, right down the street. We've lived in Merrimack for the last 5 years. It's been a great experience, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay right here. I am also on the school board, so I have a lot of things that I think about when it comes to the Merrimack School District, a lot of really positive things. Also, some things that the reason I joined was because there were some concerns I had, echoing a lot of what we've heard here already. Social emotional learning is a big one for me. Competency-based assessment is a big one for me. I would say if I had to pick one thing in general, it is our facilities, or lack thereof, I would say. Our buildings are not growing, and yet our population is. We have very old buildings that already aren't meeting the needs of many of our students. And that, if I had to pick one thing, that would definitely be it, would be our facilities.
Thank you, Ken. Shane?
Good afternoon. I'm Shane Albuquerque. I grew up in Merrimack, went through the school district here, back with a couple of kids now. One of them is in elementary school. Dan, you made a great point. I agree with you on the political divide. That's a major concern. I think my biggest concern along with that is making sure that we continue to support our teachers. And that's both pay and facility support in both physical facilities as well as student support. And one of those areas of focus for me is, a turf field and some sporting facilities. Now that may seem a little superficial to some, but along with the superintendent building, we need to attract teachers, and we're the only town around without that. So that's one of my major focuses, and also supporting anywhere else I can.
Thank you, Shane. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce probably one of the most important people of our committee, Pat Heinrich, who is our Gal Friday for all things. And she's been involved in the school district for a good many years, not to mention that her husband was the chairman of this committee for an untold number of years. So I think collectively we have a tremendous amount of diverse community skills here and ideas, and perhaps most importantly, judgment. Each of us will exercise our judgment relative to the budget, the proposals from the school district, and whatever proposals that we may have ourselves. At this point, I would like to take the opportunity to say that I do have a couple of strong things on my mind this year. Probably first and foremost is competency-based assessment. I would like to do whatever we can as a budget committee to promote the foundational costs of professional development, training, and support for competency assessment. I believe if we can get our arms around a good program, I know it will take us several years to get it up and running, but we must begin. And it probably will solve a good deal of the pitfalls that we have encountered along the way without having fully implemented it to date. So, yeah, I'm very big on competency-based assessment. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention something about our famous red building. and what on earth is going to happen to that? There's been a great deal of support for raising the building, and I realize that administratively there are always some obstacles that have to be adjudicated first before something like that can happen. But we're looking forward to taking it off of our red list so that we can focus on the black list. I also had some idea last year about a maintenance proposal that I thought whose time might have come, which is to purchase a sidewalk plow, trailer, etc. We're accumulating a good deal of sidewalk space, pedestrian space, etc., and we're still relying on our personnel to do it either by hand or with snow blowers and so forth. And I think perhaps the time has come that we may want to consider remedying that situation for its efficiency and its power. Beyond that, I'm interested in all things school district, and I'm looking forward to a good session this year. I think we're all very comfortable. With our administrative teams, and we're excited about moving into the future. Any other welcoming comments anybody would like to make? Well, then we will get to the business at hand. Our first order of business is reorganization. And so I open the floor to nominations for the vice chair. Would anybody care to make a nomination? Yes, Shane.
I nominate Naomi.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have any other nominations to consider? Well, then I will call for a roll call vote on the vice chair position.
Shane?
Yes? Is that what we're doing, yes? Or do I say the name? Yes?
Gina?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Ken?
Yep.
Dan?
Absolutely.
Carol?
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Naomi.
Yes.
I almost called you last, so. Chuck,
Yes.
it's unanimous, which means 10 votes.
So we have a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Now, are there any nominations for chair? This is the time to step up. Yes, Carol?
Yeah. I'll nominate Chuck Mauer.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Well, I'm not unopposed, I'm opposing it myself. I will call now for a roll call vote.
Ken,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Naomi,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes?
Dan,
Still absolutely.
Gina,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Oh, Chuck.
Yes.
Oh, okay, he's opposed. Also unanimous, sir. 10-0-0.
It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Well, I am now really looking forward to a good year. You never know when you reorganize, because it's the pleasure of the committee. It's always the pleasure of the committee. The chairman is basically just somebody who is trying to facilitate the discussion, deliberation, and so forth, the business of the meeting for all of the other members. So I appreciate your confidence and your support in moving forward. Unfortunately, the first order of business that we have as a reorganized committee is a member resignation. Gillian Savage has submitted a resignation. I'll read into the record. After much consideration, I am writing to formally resign my position as a member of the Merrimack School District Budget Committee. Due to changes in my professional schedule and increased family responsibilities, I am unable to fully fulfill my role as a member of this committee. I have greatly appreciated being a member of this committee for the past 4 years and wish you and all of the members still serving continued success. Warmest regards, Gillian Savage. So I would like to have a motion to accept her resignation. Carol, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mackenzie. I think a show of hands will be sufficient to accept her resignation. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Just for curiosity, could we not accept a resignation?
Sure.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Gillian has put her shoulder to the wheel, and she's contributed greatly to the Budget Committee, and I know I'd like to personally thank her for that. Okay. All right, here comes the most lively and entertaining part of our meeting tonight.
Excuse me, Chuck. how are we going to proceed about Gillian and the vacant seat?
Ah, yes. Yes, what is the pleasure of the committee relative to filling the vacant seat? Carol?
Given that we're still at the very beginning of the budget season, I think it might be appropriate to solicit people who might want to apply for the vacancy. I tend to not like doing it if we're midway or more into the season, but this early, I think it might be appropriate.
Well, our past experience as a committee is that we tend to fill all the positions, believing that all of the positions are valuable, and the more the merrier. So would somebody like to make a motion to advertise for the position, et cetera, as we have in the past? Carol moves. Gina seconds. All those in favor? Aye. That is how we will proceed. It's almost a normal administrative duty, isn't it?
We were hoping for a year without this.
Yes, indeed.
Pat, do we know when they'll post a vacancy?
Why, yes, I do.
That's right.
At this point in time, the first issue was when this committee would meet next. And we could meet on December 22nd, which is the week of Thanksgiving, November 22nd or November 29th. And that would get it all done this month. A letter of recommendation, a letter of interest could be received, and you offer me a date here, by November 18th or by November 22nd, depending upon when you're having a meeting. But that gives time for the letters to come in and for you guys to get them. So it's just a question of if you guys want to meet the week of Thanksgiving or do you want to meet the week after Thanksgiving. I did check also, and it seems that it would cost us over $250 to advertise in the Telegraph, which if you get it by mail or comes online or something. At this point, the school district, and then of course there is the Union Leader. Years ago, everybody in town either got the Telegraph or the Union Leader, and things have changed now. However, we have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have a budget committee of people that could talk to friends about who wanted to run. We'll put it on the cable.
Pat, do you post it on the Merrimack Patch too? Because a lot of people read that.
Yes, I can comment. I do get that actually, and I can certainly send it to them too, so thank you for that suggestion. In any other place, we're looking for places to advertise this. But what we would do, in order, just so you all know, you have to be a registered voter and you have to live in Merrimack. Send a letter of interest to the committee, and then the committee on the 22nd or the 29th would interview them and decide the process to fill the seat at that night. And since I'm also, in my other life, the school district clerk, I can swear that person in and they're ready to go. Because you'll notice in your packet that another thing is the calendar for the meetings that we'd like to schedule. So we'll get to that a little later in the night. So Chuck? Yes, ma'am.
Well, yes, Naomi.
Are there any legal requirements in terms of scope or extent to which, or is that something that's at the discretion of this body? In terms
There
of
is no
advertising it?
requirement to post it
Okay.
and that's one of the things that when I talked about, we've always advertised it. Years ago, when we had the Village Crier, we used to send a press release, and it was put in as an article. They're not doing that in the Telegraph anymore. They might in the Journal, but again, the Merrimack Journal is so much smaller. Everybody's looking online. So, but there is no legal requirement to advertise for it.
If the Merrimack Journal would do it, there's no cost for that, right?
I think that's an average. The question is, at this point, I was led to believe that there probably would be a cost.
Oh, okay.
Well, my only counsel as we consider this is that it's always better to get something done as soon as possible, rather than putting it off, because we don't know what will happen, or what the weather will be, or all of those considerations. So personally, I would like to move forward as expeditiously as possible, but it is at the pleasure of the committee, so. Yes, Carol?
Could we set the date as the 22nd and reserve the 29th as a, I don't think we're going to get a snowstorm that early, but as a possible snow date, just in case?
I don't think you should do the 22nd right before Thanksgiving. It's too busy.
I'm open to either way, so.
They don't have school on Wednesday. Parents are getting ready. They go out of town. You'll solicit more potential volunteers the week after.
Shall we set the date the 29th?
I knew you wanted to motion something else.
Somebody's got to jump in here.
Yeah.
Like to make a motion to make the date November 29th?
And I'll second.
Second, all right. Is there any discussion? I want to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand. So be it. The 29th is our date.
And I think we've proven that social media is, really strong. I think if we just put it out there, you'll get what you get.
I'm sure we will be flooded with applicants.
I'm still waiting for somebody to put out the cookie person, but, that hasn't happened yet.
Years ago, but a very long time ago.
I would like to remind the school board liaison to mention it in his report as well, because they're live, and by the way, we are live tonight. But that's something that it was mentioned at a school board meeting as well. They have more audience than we do.
It will be mentioned.
And now for tonight's entertainment, for which there will be no cover charge, but one of the most famous people from our administration, Matt Chepinell. Welcome, Matt. Once again, we're very pleased to see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just so you think that I'm not new here, those of you who aren't familiar with me, I have been here in front of the Budget Committee when it was a dual school and municipal budget committee, and then when it was such a school district budget committee for the last 23 years. Before that, I was with Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District, and they had a budget advisory committee, which I kind of like this format better than the advisory committee because there were no rules. When we had an advisory committee, they could just say what was ever on their mind whenever they felt like it. But before that, I worked for the town of Hooksett for 8 years as the finance director, and we had a 13-member budget committee, so I've been doing this for quite a number of years now. And it was kind of interesting, before I get into things, that I want to talk about when we go over the 23-24 outlook, is some of the items everybody brought up at the beginning of the meeting: the turf field, the superintendent's office. I know the superintendent's office has been on the capital improvement plan for 25 years now, and I haven't seen one brick laid or anything like that. We'll talk about those later because that's going to be actually fun for me. So it's interesting in looking at this budget. I could have brought you the 19-20 budget, and it would have looked the same as what I'm going to present tonight, 21-22. In 2021, I should say, when you've been here this long, you have a tendency to mix up your fiscal years, right? The surplus was $1,163,000, and the surplus to reduce taxes this year is $8,176,000. I was kind of thinking I was going to match that to not create a spike or a dip in the tax rate, and came pretty close, around $13,000 more than last year. The reasons are really kind of somewhat similar, to be quite honest with you. It's basically a lack in staffing. You know, in 21, 22, we were still reeling from 1920, you know, and then 2021. Those years kind of laid the groundwork for what we're experiencing last year. And it almost seems like it was so long ago, but when you look at it, you have an appropriation surplus. That's around $6.4 million. You have a revenue surplus, and there's a little wrinkle to that one. It's a little bit higher than anticipated because of something that happened from the health trust. But that's around 2.6. Total fund balance was around 9 million, and from that, we had a warrant article, which was kind of a creative warrant article for the teacher's contract to bring us up to somewhat close to market value. We are still not there. And so we're negotiating the new teacher contract for next year and perhaps however long it's going to go into the future to see if we can get up to the area average of competitive school districts, the ones that take from us. Bedford School District, you can still make $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to $7,000 a year more there than you can here. And so we passed two teachers' contract. One was for $1.3 million, and then one was to get us up to par a little bit more for $950,000. So it gave the voters an opportunity to say, do they want us to go to this level and be this far behind, or they want us to go to this level and be this far behind? So I was very pleased that those passed. So that's why the $950,000 that you see is coming out of the surplus, giving us a net amount to reduce taxes, which was close to last year. This year, we passed another warrant article, which I've been hoping to do such for I don't know how long that I've been here. Because when I used to work for a town, I used to have the flexibility of retaining surplus to level out the tax rate, to prevent dips and spikes, to look into the future to see what is going to happen, to look at the last year's fund balance versus the future versus the current fund balance and what it's going to do to the tax rate and how it's going to affect everybody. Because in essence, what we want to do is we want to keep the burden, which can wreak havoc with escrow accounts, with mortgages and everything like that, if there are a lot of dips and spikes. And being on the town side for 8 years, I was, you know, it was just me and Department of Revenue Administration saying how much you want to retain. I said, well, I want to keep things as even as possible. And we have a pretty good surplus this year, so let's use that to knock down the rate a little bit, to keep things even, to keep everybody in a spot that there are going to be no surprises. And that's what we want to do, basically, as a school district, as a form of government, as town government. You want to reduce the peaks and the valleys and everything like that. That's really your fiduciary responsibility in building a budget and then managing it accordingly. So we did pass a warrant article that allowed us to retain up to 5% of our assessed valuation, net assessed valuation. And this year it would have been $3 million. There's no way the first year that this warrant article passed that we were going to think about retaining $3 million. I think I'd be working someplace else if I would have done that. So we figured we take the prudent path, show good faith. This year's fund balance is almost the same as last year's fund balance. We did have a budget increase, so we're going to use all of it that we had in order to reduce the tax rate or to try and keep it at a reasonable increase, because there is going to be an increase. So the $6 million for an appropriation surplus is really on your front page, and it reads just like last year. We had a teacher shortage. We had a big turnover in school administration, had a lot of salaries that were higher on the scale, came in lower on the scale. We had a lot of positions that we just couldn't fill. We did the best we could during 21-22. This year, 22-23, it's looking a lot better. with the exception of a few areas that I'll talk about when we get to that spot. But the professional salaries, you could see how it was, underexpended by $1.7 million. That's because of turnover and not being able to hire people. And then we subcontracted out a lot of these positions, especially in the realm of special services, with contractors from Boothby, from White Birch, from a lot of, even Ceresc even still, a lot of providers that would sell us the contracted services versus owning our own people and having them be part of the school system and part of the philosophy of the school district over time. So we had that as a big challenge. We had a couple of administrators retire. That's why you see the retirement incentive is overexpended. Losing those people, losing the experience is really kind of, we've hired good people, very good people, but there's always a learning curve when you come into a position like this that you just can't pick up where the other person left off, or maybe you want to go in a different direction, or maybe you have to learn the lay of the land and how to navigate the waters of Merrimack, Sometimes they're a little bit rough, sometimes they're smooth sailing, but it's something that the new people have to learn. And we're really excited about the new crop of administrators we have. I think they're going to give us the little spark that we need, the little change in attitude, different ideas coming in. I know, Bill Olson has been in the industry for decades. Having him come here from another organization outside of New Hampshire has been a real benefit to us by bringing a different perspective from a different system. Nothing new and different under the sun, basically keeping the ship steered the way it's going, but a lot of little nuances that can help us greatly that will pay off significantly in the future by Bill being here. Same thing with Amy Doyle, our new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. She's a firecracker. She's gonna commit to making this district a better district, and she knows what she wants to do. And personally, I am exceedingly impressed with her work thus far in the few short months that she has been with us. And so you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you see her here in front of the table talking about, like you said, Chuck, competency-based grading system, how to increase our test scores, everything like that. So we've got the nucleus of a very good core of administrators, some with experience, but some with new, really great ideas that's going to show some innovation and some willingness to look at how we've been operating in the past and question, well, why are we doing it this way? We're getting this result. Let's take a look at it. Let's make some modifications. I'm not saying the world's going to be lit on fire, but it's going to take some time. And I really am excited about the future. And I'm excited to still be here to see the future. I've seen a lot of iterations of change over the years. I mean, years ago I was excited when we built the middle school. That went for 3 votes. First time we lost by 30 votes. Second time we lost by 3 votes. Third time was on the ballot, we won. It was amazing. And I see that kind of transformative change coming up in the future somehow. So anyway, I'll get off of that for now. We can talk about the future in a little bit. But, the benefits too.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Before you proceed, it's not often that the chairman of the Budget Committee gets to speak for the entire Budget Committee. It's usually at school district meeting in support of the budget. But I would like to take the liberty this evening of speaking on behalf of the Budget Committee. I believe that we have an exceptional administrative team. We are all very excited about how we are going to move forward. And Matt Chavanel is an absolute treasure to this community. And although you did a good job of explaining your curriculum vitae, it was still an understatement of the value that you give to this community. And we want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, sir. Going to have to ask Bill for a raise in the morning, huh? At least a stipend, a couple $100. Yeah. We're going to keep the one we got for a couple years, so, correct? Yeah. I told Bill he's not going away at all. Well, you know, he can be persuaded, right? I told, if you want to laugh, I told him I was going to do a weekend with Bernie's thing with him. I'm just going to,
If I can
I know
just-
that's kind of macabre, but, you know, that's my sense of humor, right?
If I can just add some confirmation for you, Carol. Bill is firmly on board with the Merrimack School District.
Yep. So when we when we look at support staff salaries, we haven't hired a custodian. We haven't had anybody apply to be a custodian in well over 18 months. We're 10, 12, 13 people down in that area. We're around 30 paraprofessionals down in that area. What we are doing with the custodians to try and backfill, and that's why you see that big support staff salaries, $1 million of that is just the custodians and the paras. It's because we couldn't find people. And what we had to do with the custodian staff is, although Tom and I really didn't like to do this, but a lot of other districts are doing it right now, they're hiring a private service. And so we check with Bedford, we check with surrounding districts, and we did hire a private service to come in and do cleaning starting this summer. So that's going to offset some of the cost of the salaries, but we want our own people working here because, you know, no one takes pride in what they do, like if they're a regular employee. Even though you do have a good contracted services, it's just not the same. You know, Manchester School District tried doing that maybe 10, 15 years ago to save a bunch of money, and it was horrible. So far, things are going well, but this is a short-term solution. This is not the way we're going to operate. So this is something that we're doing to kind of fix things. I'm giving you a little bit of what happened last year and kind of what we're doing in the future. So as far as I'm going to save that for later. So anyway, for the benefits piece, because you don't have the people, you don't have people taking health insurance. If you're like 50, 60 people short and you have budgeted for full staff, like we always do, you're going to have a surplus in benefits and the New Hampshire retirement system and FICA and Medicare. Everything that is dependent upon you paying wages to people who are in your employ is going to fall and reduce. You saw the same thing in the last time I was here. However, in the 21-22 year, we budgeted for a guaranteed maximum rate of 9.3 because that's what we were given by the Health Trust. And those of you who are new, we always get a guaranteed maximum rate around the time we're doing the budget. Usually it comes around October, November. We already have the GMR right now, but it was 9.3, so that's what we budget because historically in the past, it has come in around that number. It can't go higher, but in 21, 22, it actually came in at 5.2, so there was a 4-point difference, percentage point. And when you're dealing with a $12 million line item, I mean that's a lot of money when you're taking four points off of it. So that was a saving also. Just to kind of give you a history, in 2019, the GMR was 13.7, and the actual rate was 13.7. So we have a history, if I can keep going back, of showing what the GMR was the actual rate we paid. 2020, it was 8.4, we only paid 6. 2022, the year we're in right now, it was a minus 1.4, which is your guaranteed maximum rate decrease, I guess. And the actual revisit was 2.3. So there's going to be a tad of a savings in there, even if we're at full staff. Minus 2.3, correct. And so for 23-24, the GMR is at 8%. What the revisit is going to be, I don't know. It's anyone's guess. But if it turns out to be 8%, you darn well better have budgeted for it, or you're going to wind up in a shortfall without taking into account the information you were given you. I know sometimes it's been told to us that we should kind of guess at that coming in lower. And that's being a little bit irresponsible, because what we save, we usually give back to the taxpayers anyway, or we have been giving back to the taxpayers. And so it's something that just goes back to reduce the rate. The maintenance items that we have, the maintenance department, I know as far as our electric and natural gas and everything like that, we've been bidding that out and shopping that on the secondary market for a good 20 years before even people knew you could do that. And I got a guy down in Massachusetts, I love saying that, I got a guy in Massachusetts, right, who I've been dealing with ever since. And we've negotiated some really good rates on the supply of electricity. Is it the supply? On the actual electricity itself, right? Because the supply charges we don't control, but we control what we pay per kilowatt. And so we just renegotiated a deal that's going to bring us through 2027 that's going to lock us into like 10% a kilowatt. Now, if I offered that to anybody here, they would probably take that, right? But this is going to be for the Merrimack School District, and it's going to blow out for the next 5 years, which that's the way we like to do things. The time we did it before was for like a 4-year deal, and it was at like 7%, 7 cents a kilowatt. So that's a big savings. The only thing we don't have into take into account is the Public Utilities Commission, the cost of the distribution, and we know that's going to go up. I hear rumor that the price of the kilowatts per energy are going to go up, 60%, 50%? I just can't imagine that, because the price of natural gas is going up too, and we bought that for years into the future. I forget how they measure that. I think it's in therms, I'm not sure. But we bought that into the future too. So with natural gas going up, then energy, which is made from natural gas, electricity, that's going to shoot up too. In fact, the head of the PUC wrote the president a letter just recently saying, you need to name this as a potential health crisis in the state of New Hampshire because of the rolling blackouts that may occur, especially in the winter months when it's really cold and everything like that, affecting people who need the electricity to live their life, We all do. We all become very dependent upon that. So that's something that we're going to look out for. But as far as what we can do, we have done. But it's a little bit over, because during the COVID times, the CDC recommended that we run the HVAC systems 24/7, 365. To just refresh the air. And we put $4 million into ventilation a couple years ago. Nope, that's the vending machine going off. That's not the ventilation. But, we have put ventilation in rooms, probably around 62 rooms throughout the district that didn't have ventilation, because when a lot of these buildings were built, they were built with exhaust only. And so we took care of a lot of areas at the high school that had elevated CO2 levels, a lot of rooms at all the elementary schools district-wide. So that was a lease purchase. It was $4 million. It was a few years ago. And because of supply chain issues and labor shortages and everything like that, it took us a couple of years to put that in place, whereas in the past, it probably would have been done over the period of 6 months, with the majority of it done in the summertime. In fact, there were unit ventilators stuck in Texas for like a month because they couldn't get truck drivers to drive them up to the Northeast. So it's been challenging. Even when you have the appropriations and the money to buy things, you just can't get them in a timely fashion. So that was pretty much why the maintenance went over. Special education had a surplus. There was a lot of out-of-district placements that just kind of closed down, because after COVID and everything like that, what happened was a lot of these people in these areas, they offered early retirement incentives to folks, and they took them. Now, what happens when all of a sudden you need those folks back because everybody's coming back? Well, now you're scrambling to find people. You see that all over the place, where it's kind of like now they have to offer reverse early retirement incentives to have those folk come back to work, So, and we're doing a little bit of that here for this year, but that was a big issue. The rest of it is, staff development, contracted services. There just wasn't that amount to put towards Staff D. Those opportunities weren't there. Everything else is pretty much standard. Our bonded debt, we always do like a refi on the bonded debt, and we saved around $30,000 there. That's the last item on the page. That's been good because the bond rate's been going down. Interest rates have been going down, but interest rates aren't going down anymore, aren't they? So I think that's the last time we're going to see a reduction in the interest rate of our bonded debt. Now, the revenue surplus really is due to Medicaid, special aid. We always try and be conservative on the Medicaid money coming in, because if you go with the full 90% that you're entitled with, there have been rumors going about, and even directives for the New Hampshire school administrations, that you may not get what you think you're promised. So if you want to be prudent, you should budget for at least 60% of what you think you're going to get. In fact, a couple of years ago, I remember this, we were told to budget what we got in the first quarter of whatever fiscal year we were in, and that was only $20,000. And normally we get around $900,000 in Medicaid, $300,000 in Medicaid, $400,000 in Medicaid. And so it's something that can be fairly volatile, but we do get some guidance from Carl Ladd, used to be Mark Joyce, School Administrators Association, on what to do with that. But as far as revenue goes, we did have an unanticipated health trust refund of almost $1.4 million, which we shared with the staff. So we had a premium holiday for like a month or month and a half. So there were no deductions taken out of the staff, because part of it is their contribution too. And then the rest of it we took in the general fund. This happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago too. And it's just that once the health insurance fund gets up to holding around $300 million in reserve, they want to not hold as much as that, and so they'll give it back to the communities. I've only seen this happen 2 times in like 30 years of working with the Health Trust. And so it's fairly, until recently, it's fairly uncommon. So that really added to the revenue surplus. One good thing, I guess it's a good thing, is I'll just talk through that, that's okay. Last year, we had to supplement the food service fund by around $149,000. This year, we have a $349,000 surplus. And the reason why that is, the USDA realized they weren't giving us enough money to support the free lunches that we're giving away. In this year that we're in right now, 22-23, we still have free and reduced based upon income, but prior to that, it was free lunches for everybody. So we charged like $3.75 for a high school meal. They were giving us like $4.75. So they really boosted up our income. So now we have $350,000 surplus in the food service fund, which is a special revenue fund, so we can automatically retain that money. So I've been talking to Dave Zicki, and our auditors. Dave Zicki's our food service director, has been here forever. I mean, you can see Dave working at 5:30 in the morning, cooking in the kitchen because of lack of getting people. So when you see this man, if he looks tired, he's got a reason to look tired. And so we've been talking about what should we do with this, because now we're at people are paying, we're not getting the higher reimbursement. Are we going to need this to shore up the food service department because of the increase in costs of fresh produce, of materials, of supplies, of milk, and everything like that? And it all goes back to the cost of freight, We went out to bid, and I think Town of Merrimack did, a lot of school districts went out to bid on paper. Because what do we love to do in a school district? We love to make copies. We make around 14 million copies a year. It's a lot of paper. And it used to be you could bid out paper. Central Paper, which is another company now, WB Mason, Staples, they'd all be bidding for paper. I think it would be like $8 to $10 a box for paper, Now no one bid, right? No one bid out the paper bid. It's like $49 a case for paper now. It's like quadrupled the price that it used to be, because not necessarily it costs a lot of money to make paper, but paper is heavy. Paper has to travel in big diesel tractor trailers to get to its site. Cost of diesel fuel is now well over $5 a gallon. So that affects the cost of everything that we're buying now. So it's kind of tough to look at this year and compare it to what we're feeling. Tough to look at last year, look at what we're comparing into 22-23, and even see where we're going to land. We have enough money. We'll have a surplus. Things will be okay. We manage it. We'll get through it. But it's something to really be concerned about. And then, if we look at 23-24, when we start to build that budget, we're predicting a year and a half out. What is everything going to look like then? It's going to be a hard budget to come. What do we put for the price of oil? Years ago, we had $4 a gallon. People thought we were nuts. Now $4 a gallon kind of looks like a steal, doesn't it? Because I think the price of home heating oil is almost $5 a gallon. So it's something that we're really going to be challenged for, and to try and keep things down, and to try and go forward with the initiatives we want to go forward that's going to benefit the students, ultimately the parents, the whole community, with a responsible budget that's going to get done what we need to get done, in order to bring us forward to where we need to be. You know, Chuck had mentioned the competency-based grading system. We're looking at that. Chuck knows we're looking at that. That's going to be something that's going to cost some money and some time and some staff development and some angst and some wrenching of hands and everything like that, but we're going to get there. The one good thing, I don't know if you've spoken about this before, but the school board and the budget committee is going to sometime have a joint meeting. It's never happened. That, in and of itself, from my vantage point, is a win-win. To get you guys together in the same room and to have a good, constructive, collegiate, civil conversation about what your goals are, what you would like to see, what the board would like to see, and how you guys as a team can both work together in order to actualize what needs to happen and to help define what needs to happen. School board has a big kind of goals and objective thing. We think we need to pass that out to you guys at that meeting, and before the meeting, have you take a look at it, see what you think. School board's looking at extended learning opportunities for high school kids. Not everybody is built for a high school that has, this high school used to have 1,700 kids in here. There's now around 1,100, 1,200, but they used to have 1,700 kids. Not everybody's built for a high school for 1,700 kids, and it will get back to 1,700. Looking at all the construction that's going on, looking at all the workforce housing that's going on, I can't believe, back of the old Shaw's, I'm driving down the road, it's like, oh my God, what is that up on the hill? It's like, I hope they have it staked into the ground pretty good, because it looks like it's going to slide right under the building. You know, I'm sorry, my wife and I are driving by, and I'm like, look at that. She says, what? You've only driven by it 100 times. You haven't seen it? No, because I don't pay attention to stuff like that. It's a little issue between her and I. Like, you haven't seen this? But, you know, it's something to consider. I mean, Bill and I were talking. We want to set up a meeting with, like, Tim Thompson from Community Development and say, hey, what's the true impact of what this town is going to look like? What's the long term? Because right now we're not seeing a lot of kids coming out of those units because the rent's so high. What happens when the rent gets a little bit lower? What are you going to be seeing? And the kids coming out of those units, they're mostly in the lower grades, maybe a couple in JMUs, but they're really kind of in the elementary type grades. You're not seeing a lot of people with high school kids moving in there. But then again, who knows how that works? I remember when this district had 5,000 kids in it. I remember when we had the old middle school that had 1,398 kids in there. And it was 33% over capacity. And it took 33% over capacity for the voters to finally realize we need to build a new middle school. And we have to do a total grade realignment to make things not as horrific as they were. Because Nick Donahue used to be the Commissioner of Education, came to a school board meeting, and he stated that if you leave this alone, you're going to be having an unapproved middle school. And that has an impact on your community and on your kids and everything like that. It's going to be classified as unapproved. That's when we finally passed the warrant article for the middle school. Maybe someone needs to say that we have an unapproved central office. I don't know. I couldn't resist that one. I'm sorry. It's just that it's been on the CIP for so long. I've been looking at it, and Bill comes in, he says, Matt, we're going to get this done. I'm going, yeah, okay, Bill. Yeah, we'll get it done. But hopefully we will. Hopefully things will take off. Because there's a lot of things that I heard you guys talk about. We're going into 23, 24, that I can't argue against. Gina brought up the air conditioning in the schools. You know how often we hear that? The only schools that we have air conditioning is the center core where the library is. I'm going to really date myself. the new addition to the high school, which is not that new because it was done in 2001, but it's the 3-story area where the entrance is. We put air conditioning in there. That was one of my first projects. I came in here, there was a sand pit. Jim O'Neill, the superintendent at the time, says, here's some plans. You got $5.9 million. Build it by next summer. I said, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate that. And so we worked our way through that, and we put air conditioning in it. When it came time to do the middle school, it was only an extra $400,000 to put AC in that building while we were building the building as opposed to retrofitting. Putting air conditioning in all the schools, I would love it. But a lot of times in these buildings, because you have over time a building that was built in the 1950s that has 7 different additions to it. I'm talking the Massacola Upper Elementary School, which used to be the high school back in the day, that doesn't have enough room between the ceiling and the deck for air ducts. So we got to think of some creative ways to do that. I don't want to get into putting a split system in every classroom. That's really kind of inefficient. So we really need, a company to come in, an engineering company, to look at this and to see what we can do, if that's going to be the plan. It's going to cost a lot of money. It was kind of like when we did the sprinkler system at MES and the old middle school, J. Muse, right? We didn't have a sprinkler system in that school before I got here. We spent $650,000 and we got it sprinkled. It was a warrant article. It took Bill Pepler, the fire chief, to come to the deliberative session and says, if you don't put a sprinkler system in this school, we're going to shut it down. He was the fire chief at the time. So there's a lot of things that, need a little push to get going. But I heard the ACs in the schools. I heard Chuck was saying competency-based grading system. Carol Lang mentioned the superintendent's office. I'm not complaining. I'm not one to complain. You put me anywhere, I really don't care, But that office has really outlived its usefulness years ago. We have human resources on the bottom floor. We have to actually move the fingerprint machine upstairs because there were some people who couldn't do the stairs because they are rather treacherous. I'll never forget that one day when Marge Chaffrey, the former superintendent, was coming down to talk to me. She had a cup of coffee in one hand and some papers in the other, and all of a sudden I heard boom, 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 boom. Well, Marge is at the bottom of the stairs with a big sprained ankle, but did she drop her papers that she wanted to talk to me about? No. Did she spill her coffee? No, she didn't spill her coffee. And I looked at her, I says, Marge, what are you doing sitting down there? She says, I just fell down the stairs. But you know what the amazing part? You didn't spill your coffee or drop your papers. She says, yeah, that was good. Then we watched the rest of the day as her ankle got tighter and tighter in those pair of high heels that she used to wear. So, yeah, is it time? Yeah, it is time. The turf field, we've been talking about that for a long time. And I agree. I don't know if it was you. Yeah, okay, Shane, right? Who had mentioned the turf field. We had plans for that years ago, and there was opposition to it. But it's kind of a bummer if you go to any other school. It's Class L school. Did Tomahawks beat Bedford on Friday? Yeah, I know they did. That's all right. I was happy with that. I know. They have 2 of them. They have the Loris World Foundation, and we were really, really so grateful to Dr. Wolf and Sean Powers, everybody else who took part in that to raise money and sell bricks, to finally give us a concession stand that looked like, it just shows pride in your facilities. And you bought a brick? Was that you? I looked at that brick and I says, I wonder who that is. Okay. Now the mystery is solved. But awesome. But yeah, the turf field, the superintendent's office, the red building. Yeah, the red building. We spent $275K for that, right? What is it, 5 years ago? It's still sitting there. We looked at renovating it for a central office. The price tag to renovate that building for a central office was more than building a central office from the ground up that worked architecturally. Because that space is so disjointed. No offense to Reed's Ferry Shed, quality organization, but it looks like a bunch of Reed's Ferry Sheds put together over time. And its abutment to the neighbor's property is a little not really in code, you know? So it really needs to come down. If we do one thing next year in the budget, if we could get some money to take that thing down and fill it in. We are working with Steve Keach on a master plan. I know we've been working for it forever. I just was bugging him the other day because he does have some good drawings, but we just need to see them. We need to sit with the Planning and Building Committee. We need to then present to the board, and we're just anxious to get that off because it deals with the whole campus. Because we want to change the whole look of this campus. We want to, when you pull up to it, say, okay, you're in a school now. Because a lot of people come up the road and they'll drive around all over the place. They're looking for the courthouse. I don't know how many people is this the courthouse over here? I says, yeah, it's the green building. Come on in. I'll adjudicate you, right? But it's just, we need to kind of define this space. And Steve's got a really good plan. We just need to put it into operation. Maybe seeing that Gina and Rachel did such a great job with the Thorntons Ferry Playground, maybe they could do a fundraising for us for central office. And who knows, you know? I mean, that could be a real boon to the starting of it. But, you know, that's another thing. You know, we started off with people said we want a capital reserve fund for central office. We put it on the ballot. It failed. People said we didn't vote for the capital reserve fund for the central office because we just want you to put it on the ballot. We put it on the ballot the next year. It failed. Price tag for a new central office, you know, 6 years ago was like $3.4 million. So it's around a 10,000 square foot building. It's got a meeting space in it, not like this, but something appropriate to have some sort of conference room. Somewhat appropriate to have special ed there so they could have private conferences with parents. Most of the times they go to the schools now to do it, but a lot of times there are parents that don't want to go to the schools and they need to go see Heather Barker and whoever it is, and they need to do it in a private location. So we still need that functionality. Have an area where, you know, human resources can actually meet people on one level and not have to traverse all over the place. You know, the parking. When you're trying to, if you're a high school kid and that high school kid drives a car and they're leaving at 20 past 2 or whatever it is, it's like Daytona 500 out there. And it's no criticism against them. When I was in high school, I was just like them, right? I was roaring to get out of here, and of course, you know, I had some glass packs on my Camaro, and I had to make some noise and whatever. I kind of chuckle at them, you know, now. I just kind of think it's funny, because everybody's being safe, but they're still, you know, having fun. But it's just, the traffic is just a mess. And the buses have to come, basically, they have to lock bumpers and form a caravan to make that left-hand turn to go around the building, because you have cars ready to dart in front of them at any second. So they got to keep it tight so no one breaks the line. Because we've got 36 buses coming from the middle school swooping into the high school in 2 different waves. So this is some of the stuff that hopefully the master plan will solve. We've been looking at different traffic patterns. Hopefully we do have a location for where the central office is more than likely makes sense to be. Not in the campus here, but perhaps down the end of O'Gara Drive, if we can make that happen and make it happen making sense as far as the traffic pattern goes. So there's a lot of things here that need to be addressed, and I'd like to address them in the next few years, sooner than later, because there are a lot of needs. I mean, why Merrimack doesn't have a turf field? Merrimack didn't have lights until 20 years ago on that field, you know? We barely had bleachers that were any good. We had a track that was just horrific. We've done a lot of work in the past, done a tremendous lot of work in the past with the help of school boards, town peoples, voters who have been very generous, and we appreciate every bit of support that everybody has given us over the years. But we still have a ways to go, and it's time for the new people to pick it up and run with it and see how far they can go. So with that, I would like to hear, I've been talking for a little bit, I think, although once I get on a roll, my wife says, "Don't you shut up when you get on a roll?" And I says, "No, not really. I could just keep going all night." But I'd like to hear your thoughts, your reactions, your questions, whatever you have that's on your mind. We value you. We want to hear your opinion, and we want to work together as a team. So, Mr. Muller, I will bring it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. The superintendent has extended an invitation for comments, questions, remarks, additions, omissions, etc. Mackenzie?
Matt, can you speak on the difference between the students that needed to be placed out of the district between the ones that had to be placed last year and this year?
Well, we did get, we had out-of-district placements. We had contracted services that we hired that we kept a lot of those kids in-house, which is always better. But we were still lacking in some of the placements that we needed, so we made do as best we could with any kind of compensatory services. And we had a really robust summer program for all those kids to catch up with learning loss, but you're not going to see that expense until 22, 23. So that was our makeup. We had a lot going on in the summertime. The only school that we didn't have going was Thornton's Ferry, because we put a roof on it and we did a little playground project over there. So we couldn't have people walking around. So we did make up with the summer reinforcements and the summer supports and everything like that. Very robust plan.
And then my additional question, for students who need like the one-on-one and one-on-two paras, are those students receiving that with the fact that we're short with 31 paras?
Yeah, they are prioritized. If it says you need a one-on-one, you're getting a one-on-one. Now, to solve the problem with the paras, what we're doing this year, and that was approved on October 3rd, presented sometime in September, where you heard a lot of districts are offering retention bonuses. So for all support staff members, including paras, custodians, food service workers, CODAs, administrative assistants, they're getting a $1,000 retention bonus. So that's going to show up in the 22-23. We can't afford to lose people, right? So we want to incentivize them to stay. So the $1,000 retention bonus is going to be payable in 2 installments, one right around now and one around December. That's going to be for every single support staff member, regardless who they are. And plus, we're offering them a signing bonus if they could bring a qualified employee to the district and they stay for at least 90 days. So we're trying to incentivize them to bring their friends or people they know, and if they stay for more than 90 days, they were going to get a finder's fee or a little bonus. That's done in, if you're in private industry and you're an engineer and somebody can bring you in, you're probably getting $3,000 just for bringing that engineer in, you know. So I think $500 is fair for the job that they do. So that's what we're doing, to try and get more people in. But we have been doing better this year. But yeah, the one-on-ones are the priority, and they get the services.
What is the pay comparable to the other schools? Are they going to other schools and not
They're
here
going
to Merrimack?
they have either left the industry and not coming back, or we are slightly behind as far as the contract goes. And so that's why we put this $1,000 payment to kind of bridge the gap until we can negotiate a new contract, not for next year, but for the year after. That's when they come up. So we'll see if we hang on to this, but it's something that we're trying to do to kind of even things out. But we do have a pretty good benefit package, so that kind of outweighs things. But it's hard work, you know, and when you're starting as a para, you come in, we have the flexibility to bring you up if you have experience in other districts. We have the ability to bring you up to at least step 3. Before, we had to hire you at step 1. And what are you making? You're making $14.86 an hour on step 1. You can make more in Dunkin' Donuts. And paraprofessionals, my God, I wouldn't want to, they just work incredibly hard. And by the end of the day, they have to be absolutely physically and mentally drained. I've seen it, you know. So thank you for that question.
Hang on, Carol. Shane, you had a question? Okay, Carol?
A couple things. One is, I couldn't help, and this is very rough math, so don't hold me to the number, but it looks like we spent somewhere in excess of $4,000 again this year on utilities, et cetera, for the red building. And I
yeah.
just feel like we're throwing good money after bad, and I wish we could somehow get that point across so that we could get rid of that building. I don't care if we make it extra parking spaces, what we want to do with it, but let's stop spending money on it because it's crazy. A question I have, you touched on it about the paras, but I know we had this same problem with maintenance, that we had to bring them in at step 1. Is that still the case?
Could you please repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it used to be that maintenance workers we had to bring in at step 1. Is that still the case?
We can bring them in at, the same thing with the paras, we can bring them in at
Okay.
step 3.
So that should make it a little easier.
It should make it a little easier, but when you're looking for an electrician or a plumber or something like that, my
Yeah.
plumber drives a Dodge Viper, okay? So they're making a lot of money. But it's good for somebody who wants the benefits and doesn't want to, you know, do the, have the stress of working for another organization, going into a lot of different situations. So, you know, hopefully we'll be able to find. But with the custodians and with the maintenance people, we do have the ability to bring them up to step
that's
3,
good.
which is something.
And the other thing is, I don't know when we will next be putting a superintendent's building on the ballot again, but when we do, I think one of the cases we need to make to the taxpayers is just what you alluded to, of all the years we've waited, how much has the cost risen? And the longer we wait, it will continue to rise. So the sooner we address this issue, not only do we address a pressing need, but we actually save future tax dollars.
Well, like I said, last time, I don't know if you guys remember, we had 3 different scenarios. We had put an addition on to the high school, right, Pat? She's going to smile. We had renovate the Brentwood building, and then we had build a new central office, freestanding, ground up, ta-da. And I think the most expensive one was, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're going to do it anyway, the tack on to the high school, and it just didn't work logistically because there's an exit there. What do you want them to do? Exit into the superintendent's office, go up the stairway? It just didn't make any sense. And so the Brentwood building, you would have to have torn down half the Brentwood building anyway because it's just substandard. And then the half that you see that's the big section has a slab foundation that's kind of doing one of these. So that was like $3.4 million. That was 3.5, 3.4, and then 3.4. They all cost around the same. But that was like 5 years ago.
And are we still stuck waiting, in the sense of before we kept getting put on hold for that, waiting for a master plan? Does that still seem to be the sense?
We're still working on that. It's been a long, arduous process. We have contracted with Steve Keach. I've emailed him again. We got a first rendition of it, but we want the final plan stepped out, and what is step one, what is step two, what is step three, what is step four, cost it out, get it done. So step one, he even said this, and I can bring him to the board, and they can listen to him. Step one, regardless of what you're gonna do, is to take down Brentwood. That is step one. That doesn't even have to be in a plan. You know, that is just needs to happen, you know, because right now, I've watched the building kind of morph in shape, you know.
Maybe it will fall down.
Well, the fire alarm did go off the other day, and everybody goes, oh, yeah, fire alarm's going up. No, I'm only kidding. But it was kind of like one of these things where, yeah, eventually, who knows?
But as far as the superintendent's building, that won't move forward until the master plan is finalized?
I'm not sure. We know where we want to put that too. I mean, those are givens. We want Steve really to kind of step it up and give us something now
Yeah,
that we want it done now.
yeah, at least the items that we know. Some other stuff, maybe it
Yeah.
needs to be debated.
If we're talking about this, the design of the traffic flow and everything like that, that's something that's not going to be done in a summer, right? That's going to be something that's going to be done over time. We talked about redoing the parking lots over here, repaving O'Gara Drive. We get complaints about O'Gara Drive all the time because it's shell-shocked, but we did put some cold patch on it recently, or hot patch, or whatever it was, to kind of stem the tide. We want to put a sidewalk all the way down O'Gara. Nelson Disco's waiting for that. I feel so terrible that I've been putting them off for 5 years, you know. No, this isn't the year, Nelson, I'm sorry, you know. It makes me personally, you know, hurts me. But, yeah, the plan's coming out, so, because we're going to push it, and so it's going to come out.
And the other thing, I recently drove down by the middle school and noticed, apparently, I guess, we blinked and gave in on the stop sign for the
We
traffic.
never gave in, Carol.
Well, then what happened? Please tell me.
The town overruled us.
They have that authority?
Absolutely.
Because
They made Madeline Bennett Drive a town road.
Right.
So now Madeline Bennett Road hooks into Old Blood, and they're both town roads.
Gotcha. If it
You don't
turns-
want to get me going on this
If
one,
it
because it
turns
doesn't
in-
make any sense.
If it turns into a disaster, can we get at least them to rethink it?
Yes.
Okay.
I was told that if it does turn into a hazard, which is kind of, do we really have to wait that long? Then they will revisit it. I'm not sure what happened, because when we were first talking about it, Steve Keach drew up a roundabout in that area, which, I don't know about you guys, but the roundabout on Babusick Lake Road and, what is that, Turkey Hill? That's nice.
You like it, I don't.
I like it because I was on my motorcycle and I was taking a left on a Turkey Hill, and my wife was with me, and she went and I was following her. Guy came like a foot behind my rear wheel, and it sort of scared me a little bit because they're coming around the corner. So I like the roundabout.
Yeah.
you
My
know.
problem, it's fine if you're going straight up Babusick Lake Road. If you're going from Town Hall and want to take a left on Turkey Hill, that turn is very awkward.
Yeah.
But it is what it is now, it's built. But I am concerned about the situation for the buses coming out of the middle school.
You know, they did a study where they said, okay, the bus is going to stop at the stop sign for 3 seconds, then they're going to go. But the issue with that is, you've got a car coming up Madeline Bennett Lane. Which way is that car going to go? So the bus is going to be sitting there at the stop sign, ready to leave the building. Car's going to be coming up Madeline Bennett Lane. Is the car going to trust the blinker on, is this bus going to trust the blinker on the car, that they're actually going into the building, or they're taking a left-hand turn in front of the, no, they're not. They're going to wait till the car goes past them and they see them commit. And then they got to look to their right, where the line of sight is not that good. I sat there in my car looking, line of sight, I got on a bus and had the bus driver stop at that that stop strip, and we're both looking at it from the bus driver's vantage point, and I still don't like that line of sight.
No, the whole thing to me looks like a disaster in waiting, but I guess at this point, we have to wait to prove the
We'll
point.
see. The town took ownership of the road, and the town owns Old Blood.
This will be the first year that we'll have school buses coming out there with that
No, they had it
pattern,
last
right?
No, not yet. It's, Old Blood's not a town-accepted road yet, so we're not sending buses down there. But I think cars are going through,
Yeah,
Is
okay.
is there anything else, Carol?
No, that's it.
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know, they survived the middle school dance pickup without any accidents, so.
Matt, one final thing. Oh, Shane.
Okay.
Long.
No, go ahead.
Just as a general statement, we've had the Student Services Building on a plan for 25 years minimum. I saw the piece of paper. We've been paying $4,000 a year for the red building, more in some cases. We haven't had a turf field forever. We're the only town around. We are severely behind with teacher salaries still. So that's all the negative, right? And for years, we have a budget that comes in pretty close to the estimated budget, and the actual pretty close to matches. Last year, we had $8 million, 10% extra, and we didn't use it for much. We did do one, the $950,000, which is great. I implore everybody, whatever you want to spend the money on, whether it's whatever it is. You might not agree with me on the turf field, you might not agree on the Student Service Center. Let's just think together. We have like 1 or 2 more years of a pretty good surplus. Let's plan to use it. We have a few opportunities here to actually use this money and get some real things done, and I hope we do that this year.
That would be up to, if you can retain up to 5% of the net assessed valuation, which was around $3 million. Or you do warrants from surplus, correct. So that's a good. You could, if you know how much it's going to be, you could use all of it.
And one more time, everybody in the town has a plan for the budget. It comes in actual. We're all fine with that. Everybody for the last 20 years has been fine with that. I know that we have a surplus here, and everybody says, well, we want it to help the taxes. To the individual homeowner, I don't think it's as much as we all think it is. So it'd be great to get something for the general public,
Yeah.
In total. I'm done.
Matt, when will our budget books be ready for pickup?
Well, we're putting the final touches on that document, and I think the first Monday in December, which may be December 6th, that will be distributed to the school board. So after that, probably in a couple days. December 5th? Okay, that's right. Last year was December 6th. See? December 6th. So December 5th to the board, so maybe that Wednesday.
Thank you very much for coming this
Yeah.
evening and the thorough examination of our budget.
And it's been a nice conversation that we've had tonight. And I look forward to continuing these conversations with the Budget Committee and the school board together. I think that's going to be a phenomenal meeting. So thank you for being agreeable to such, and the board being agreeable to such. I thank them also. It's about time. Thank you.
I think the subject is closed at the moment. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
So we have our committee meeting schedules. Everybody has. And budget pickup sometime around the first week in December. And we have liaison requests, which many of you have already filled out and passed along, so please do so at your first convenience. And next is public participation.
I don't think so.
I think I'm going to ask Nelson Disco if he'd like to come for a public participation sometime. We could talk about the safe routes to schools.
There you go. That'd be awesome.
Do we have a date for this joint school board budget committee meeting so that I can post it? Because we have to
We
post
do
it as a
not.
meeting as well.
We do not.
Before, during, or after the budget sessions?
I'm sorry, I missed all that.
She was asking if there's a scheduled meeting date for the joint meeting between the board and the committee, and as of right now, there's
Oh,
not.
yeah, it has yet to be determined.
Okay.
To be determined.
Hope you took good notes, Candace. That would be-
Member comments?
Before you get there, the schedule that you have for the meetings, for those of you that are new, this budget committee sends liaison teams to each of the departments that are listed here to learn about that budget. And that's what the liaison request sheet is that's in your packet. So you get to pick which ones you want, turn the sheet in to Chuck. School board members in the past have not had liaison assignments. However, Naomi, as a school board member, decided it was a way to learn more about the budget in her first years on the committee, and so she took a liaison assignment. So that'll be up to you whether or not you want one or not.
I'll let her handle that. She's very capable.
Then, at the bottom of the schedule that you have, ordinarily, on the last day to accept petition warrant articles, we would have our public hearing. The Budget Committee is required to have one public hearing. This has to be noticed, published in the paper by the second Tuesday in February, and blah, 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 at which the operating budget and moneyed warrant articles on the default budget are brought up and discussed. The ordinary day for that, the last day for petition warrant articles, happens to be Valentine's Day. Does this committee want to meet on Valentine's Day? And she wants them heart-shaped?
I don't even care if they're heart-shaped. I just want cookies.
You just want cookies?
What
Okay.
you need is to get Rose Robertson Smith back from
Back on the
Tennessee,
committee.
right?
That's
She was
right.
the cookie lady, right?
She was the cookie
Yeah.
lady. So, I was hesitant to schedule a meeting on February 14th because that is Valentine's Day. If you guys want to meet on the 14th, we can. We can meet on the 16th, which is the Thursday of that week, or we can just take a chance and just meet on Tuesday, February 21st, which is the last date to have a public hearing, which means that if it's snowing, you're driving because we have to have the meeting.
As far as that February 14th, that isn't statutory, that we can have it after that.
We have to have a public hearing.
No,
Um,
submission.
The
Well, they
last
have
date
it-
of submission of petition warrant articles, that's statutory. We can have it any time between then and the 21st. Actually, Carol, if we wanted to have a public hearing on February 8th, we could. But if a warrant article comes in, we have to have another one. So that's why we,
14th or later.
the 14th or later, but the 21st is the drop dead date.
Or we could have the 16th, right?
Yeah.
We could meet on the 16th if you want.
So as a mom of three, and her kid still loves Valentine's Day, I say the 16th is better, and I'm sure there's a few other parents on
I
here.
thought you probably would.
Yeah.
It happens to be my daughter's birthday, so
Right.
Stan never scheduled a meeting on the 14th.
Right. So, I
So-
mean, that would just be better all around, because, you know, we're here for the kids.
Yes,
Should be there
okay,
for
the
our own
16th, that
first.
is fine. The as-needed date for the public hearing would be the 21st, and that's a drop, that we have to have that meeting that night.
If you don't want to drive in the snow, I'll pick you up.
Well, actually, they did that one year, actually. But we had to, the public hearing a couple of years ago, we actually had to have, we were here when we couldn't get anybody else here, and Carol was on the phone because it was an emergency. We had to have the meeting by statute, so be it. Somebody came in on the phone.
Years of trauma call, snow doesn't scare me. I'm good.
Yep. The only other meeting in this, as I said, the Budget Committee joint meeting, I don't know when that's going to be. However, Add on to this that there will be a meeting immediately after deliberative session, and that date has not been set, but it will be somewhere between March 4th and March 11th.
Right in hockey playoffs, perfect.
But, and usually it's on a Tuesday night, but the school board will set the date, but the budget committee has to meet after that, because if anything is changed at deliberative session, we have a meeting, and you might change your recommendations. So,
Thank you, Pat. Carol? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand.
nope, I had one other thing to say as far as schedule.
Yes.
Just so you're all aware, that filing period is in February 22nd to March 3rd. So that's a date, another date for everybody to remember. Well, actually, on the sheet you have in front of you, which was the members, anybody that says 2023, they're up. And by the way, on this sheet, if there's any errors, if you'd let me know so that I can make corrections. Mackenzie has something that was an error on the, okay.
Okay, is everybody good? All right, yes, Rachel?
Thank you, Chuck. So as part of the budget book pickup, could you explain what is included in that budget book?
The entire budget for the entire school district.
Okay. Okay. And is it, so it would be the budget for the 23-24 school year. Is there any information on the status of this current school year that will help us, look into the future as well? So we have past data and future. There is, okay. Okay.
Comparative columns.
Compared to,
There are comparative columns for the information that exists for the current year.
okay.
And then in your liaison meetings, you get to ask all those questions and those small things, and then we present as the group. So
Okay.
there's more information than you could ever want in there.
No, I always want more data.
No, it's there.
If there's any particular facility that you're really interested in, that's where you really can dig your heels in and find out what's what.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to understand the budget book. And then one other thing, Matt kind of hit upon is, the cost of so many things going up lately. I don't know if there's been any thought or discussion into, impacts of, I know as a town, it seems like the budget from year to year has to stay fairly stable, so there's not, a lot of, or it seems like that seems to get more support than, if we, jumped it up, due to whatever reasons. I think something that's really important to think about, moving forward and trying to think about what prices will be for certain things and how it impacts the budget are just those impacts, what students and staff will not get, as prices rise. And I'm going to guess that the budget at some point will have to rise with that, right? Unless we're going to reduce something in other areas to kind of keep it even. So those would just be things to think about, impacts.
Rachel is a new member of the committee. I assure you that any question you ask is a welcome question, and feel free at any time to ask any questions and offer any insight that you believe you have into the process of us collaborating as a committee and coming to a conclusion on the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
I was just trying to beat Shane.
All right.
I know.
All those in favor? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.